What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with a group I haven't reacted to in a while, though that wasn't by design. We're back with the track by the Devils. We're going to listen to the fourth tune on the album, which I believe is called Smoke Signals, or Signals in Smoke. But I did want to apologize. This is going to happen more as I'm starting to react to a lot of new groups, or not new groups, but groups whose catalog is basically new to me. I'm eventually, or inevitably, I will end up accidentally going on hiatus on another group. So yeah, this won't be the first time it happened, but basically, I didn't want to stop reacting to the Devils. I just got lost in all the other reactions I'm doing, and it was only earlier tonight when I was scrolling through and thinking, like, what do I want to react to? And it's like, oh my god, I forgot the Devils. So this is a project that I've been meaning to go through more rapidly. I do apologize. And indeed, from this point on, again, I've started to react to a number of groups. I got some more deep dives that are just about to begin that I haven't even started yet. So at some point, if I seem like I'm going through an album and then I sort of stall out for 2-3 weeks, something, just send me a message. Just say like, hey, are you still going through this album? And I will be very appreciative and say, oh right, I did forget about that. And also, I know there's other people asking about albums I don't yet have, some of the solo material related to Duran. My plan is to get that eventually. I'm just about to start buying again some albums, but I have been on sort of a hiatus from getting stuff for like a month, because there was like a month and a half where I was literally just buying albums like every week. But yeah, bottom line, it may happen again, but if it does, just mention it, whether it's the Devils or anybody else. Just say, hey, are you still going through this album? So, yeah, bottom line, apologies to the people who enjoy the Devils. And indeed, I am keen to keep going through this album because I've become a big fan of Nick Rhodes. I like his sort of synth work and just sort of the sensibility that he brings to Duran songs. And I am also curious about a project that is essentially like two of the founding members of Duran Duran. I know like John Taylor and Nick are the ones who were the first sort of two in the group based on what people have told me. But yeah, Stephen Tintin Duffy was the original singer for the group. I believe the Dark Circles material was essentially like a recording session, or it was a plan for the first Duran album, and then it turned out that the lineup changed and Simon came in, and then it wasn't until '81 that we would get the self-titled debut album. But bottom line, I was very keen to go through this, not only because I enjoy Rhodes' synth work, but also because I was curious to hear what it would sound like with him on the synths, but with a different voice singing along, and also to wonder what Duran would have sounded like with a very different singer. So I've been keen to go through this, and if you didn't know, this was stuff that again they worked out either very late '70s or maybe 1980. I don't know exactly when Simon came into the group or when Stephen Duffy left. But bottom line, in the early 2000s, one of them stumbled on the old masters or the old recordings, reached out to the other person. I forget whether it's Nick who found them or Stephen who found them, but they reached out to the other and they said, you know what, we should go back and sort of finish this album. And I believe they then recorded a few new tracks, mixed it and with the old tracks, and I believe sort of re-recorded or remastered the old tunes, and that became the Dark Circles album from I believe 2002. So yeah, I'm, like I said, very interested to go through the rest of the album, so let's get to it. This is Signals in Smoke from the 2002 album Dark Circles by the Devils. Oh, what am I doing? I guess I should speculate about the title really quickly. I would say, smoke signals, it's a phrase that's often used in relation to a overgeneralized by popular perception and even, sort of pop culture history, but that indigenous American groups, as well as, different tribal groups in other places, one form of communication was the sort of coordinated and sort of selective use of smoke as released from a source of fire to then indicate to others who were near enough by to see it what may be happening, and whether this was a more ceremonial message or whether it's a more immediate practical logistical message. Again, the degree to which smoke signals were used in indigenous North America is perhaps overrepresented in popular culture and movies and so on. But it was a legitimate form of communication in certain contexts. And I suppose the thing that I wonder whether it might be relevant in the song is Smoke signals are, when used in sort of modern conversation, it's a phrase that's often meant to indicate not just a form of communication, but a form of communication that is essentially coded and only discernible to a few, or to those who are sort of the in-group, those that are part of the society in which that type of message is conveyed. So yeah, in a way it's the imparting of information, but it's the imparting of information that is only useful or detectable if you have the wherewithal, whether, you know, that's like on a technical level. Obviously, even if you're born in a society, you have to grow up and learn language and so on. But again, it's a type of communication that would be, even if detectable at all, not discernible to those sort of outside the system. So yeah, I wonder whether signals in smoke may relate to messages that transmit information, be it, you know, sort of empirical information or emotional information, psychological information, but which not everybody can read, and whether, you know, that coding is deliberate in terms of, you know, you're expressing information or thoughts or feelings, but you're doing so in a way that you don't necessarily want everyone to sort of, you know, peek behind the curtain, or whether you're trying to communicate with someone, but your communication to their perception and their mind is opaque, ambiguous, nebulous. You know, it's hard to make much of. It just looks like, you know, essentially white noise. So yeah, I wonder whether the communication, if that is indeed sort of the general theme at play, whether it might relate to the readability of messages or not. But let's get it. This is The Devils from their Dark Circles album, Signals in Smoke. Oh. Love the sort of ambient, depressive, not depressive like sad, but sort of low energy jazz feel of the ambient, and that really high tone.
smoke, tell me we all lose signals and smoke. Tell me we all
a desire for information to be a part of it. What a remarkable tune. First it sounded like water flowing, but then it was like castanets. More on that beat in a second. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And it's been a little while, so it's hard to compare, but that may be my favorite so far. Just the sonic texture of that one was unbelievable. Again, I loved it when Duffy's voice came in, and I enjoyed at least parts of a couple lines. I didn't really hear everything, and I'm not sure. I know there were discussion of like actual smoke, but I'm not sure, in the context of a couple of the other lines, so I need to hear it some more lyrically. But it was definitely the sonics that stood out to me most, and it was just, again, so rich in texture. There were those sort of like expansive kind of bass chords, but there were also like all sorts of like synth layers, like melody, like pad melodies, and also those little sort of melodic touches that I noticed even more in like the back half of the tune. Yeah, just really remarkable work from Mr. Rhodes, so shout out to this arrangement. I'm really interested to go through this album. But it's interesting, when that beat, I enjoyed it very much at the beginning, and it felt maybe not hip-hop per se, but it felt like a little syncopated. It felt like, I don't know, somewhere between like hip-hop and a more electric sound. Maybe like electro would be a way to phrase that. But either way, as the song went along, I was more and more interested in sort of, again, like the pad synths and the sort of those like periodic bass chords. And it almost felt like the tune could have worked without the percussion scheme. Like, it felt like it could have been sort of like a more proper kind of like ambient or like score track. Now, I don't think it was bad by any means having the beat there, and at first it felt like it was an essential ingredient. But as the tune went on, it felt like you could pull that percussive groove out, and it would still be a really interesting and remarkable tune. So yeah, perhaps, it could have lended itself to a like ambient mix, or like a different mix that, remove that sort of syncopated but also like kind of relentless beat out, which is funny because I was thinking it felt sort of relentless because there weren't like too many like alterations or like idiosyncratic ends to the measures. It was just pretty much that steady beat the whole time, and indeed it was the last thing we heard as it sort of like winded down. But yeah, top tune. Really excited to continue now to go through the rest of this album. Do let me know what you think of the tune. Other than that, I will see you next time. Peace.